At an undisclosed location, two individuals are being held captive. One of them is dressed in military attire, while the other is wearing a simple tracksuit. The military-clad individual begins to speak, expressing his apology to a professor. However, the professor dismisses this apology, placing the blame squarely on himself. The soldier then reflects on the events that led to their predicament, expressing anger toward the informant who betrayed them. He explains that the enemy force was much larger than they had anticipated and that the enemy had detailed knowledge of their route and attack timings. It becomes evident that this situation was a trap from the very beginning. Suddenly, there are clanks heard from beyond the door, which shortly opens to reveal one of the guards throwing another soldier into their holding cell. This new arrival is identified as Sergeant Kim. The soldier in military attire is visibly upset by how another soldier is being treated and stands up to hurl insults at their captor. The guard responds with incomprehensible language and promptly strikes the soldier's head with an assault rifle. A glimpse of the captor reveals that he is of African descent, hinting that this ordeal may be occurring in one of the war-torn countries on the continent. Sergeant Kim asks the soldier in military attire if he's all right, addressing him as lieutenant. The lieutenant assures him that he's fine and inquires about the whereabouts of the other troops. Kim informs him that the others were taken somewhere else. More clanks are heard outside the door, and it opens again, revealing a guard who collapses to the ground, knocked out by an individual who was behind him. This newcomer asks if Lieutenant Kong Ham Chan is present, surprising the lieutenant with his knowledge of Korean. The lieutenant inquires about the stranger's identity, and the stranger reveals that he is here to rescue them. They all begin following the stranger, witnessing the aftermath of his arrival with multiple guards incapacitated. Kong expresses his surprise and asks the stranger about his division and the number of people with him. The stranger refuses to disclose this information, stating that he is alone. Kong is amazed at how a single person could accomplish this stealthily. As they prepare to move, a guard emerges from a suddenly open door, reaching for his gun. Kong is ready to open fire, but the stranger swiftly incapacitates the first guard with 2 quick blows and takes out the other with a thrown knife. The stranger assures the soldiers that he will handle the enemies, prompting Kang's annoyance at being treated like baggage. The stranger moves swiftly, defeating any guards who attempt to stop him. Kong realizes that there will be multiple enemies around the next corner and believes the stranger will need assistance. However, the stranger continues to advance, silently dispatching all opposition. Kong is shocked by his disregard for life and considers him a true monster, noting that he is not from the military. They eventually reach the outside, and the stranger instructs them to wait for 1 minute. Kong is puzzled by this but notices the other soldiers behind them, clearly out of breath. Kong observes the stranger's black pupils and concludes that he is skilled but not part of any military. Kong asks if the stranger is Korean, but the stranger remains silent, only speaking up when the time is up, and they resume moving. After a while, they arrive at a clearing where other captured soldiers are waiting. Both groups are thrilled to be reunited, and Kong inquires about what happened. The rescued soldiers explain that the stranger saved them as well and instructed them to wait. The stranger announces that this is where they part ways and advises them to head southwest, where people will be waiting for them. Kong expresses his gratitude, and the stranger, confirming Kang's suspicion of being a mercenary, offers a handshake, noting that even though it was a request, he still appreciates him with thanks. The stranger looks at Kang's hand, and at that moment, an explosion erupts from the nearby bushes, startling them both. The stranger shouts for everyone to take cover, and the explosion goes off just as he finishes his sentence. The blast leaves Kong disoriented, but miraculously, he survives. He identifies it as mortar rounds and quickly checks on his comrades, confirming their safety as the explosion narrowly missed them. Gunshots ring out, and we witness the stranger swiftly retaliating against the attackers. Kong is profoundly shocked, especially because the stranger appears to be no older than a teenager, revealing his youthful appearance. The scene shifts to 6 months later, where we find ourselves outside a school. Inside a classroom, a teacher introduces a new student to the class, who happens to be the same stranger who aided the soldiers in their escape. As he introduces himself, we finally learn his name, Ijin. Inside the school, a girl reflects on her brother. Her thoughts are abruptly interrupted by another girl who bursts into the classroom, exclaiming about the arrival of a strikingly handsome new student. The girl realizes that they are talking about her brother, a brother she never expected to see again due to a plane crash while he was inside an airport. She gazes longingly at Ijin, who is revealed to be her brother. Next to him, an elderly man touches his face gently, shedding tears of joy at his unexpected return. The girl questions if this person is truly her brother. Ijin notices her and offers a gentle smile, confirming her identity as Daeyeon. Her contemplation is disrupted by a girl who is clearly annoyed at Daeyeon for ignoring her for so long. This girl demands Daeyeon's gym clothes for their physical education class and inquires if Daeyeon brought them. Daeyeon confirms that she did but asks what she would wear if she gives them away. The girl scoffs at Daeyeon and labels her as insane for talking back, slapping her across the head. It becomes evident that Daeyeon has been a victim of ongoing bullying. We return to the classroom where Ijin is attending. The teacher continues introducing him to the class, explaining that he had been living abroad for personal reasons and requesting the class's help in his adjustment. The girls in the class are noticeably infatuated with him. The teacher instructs Ijin to take an empty seat, and he complies. As he walks to his seat, a red-haired guy in an orange tracksuit glares at him, wondering why everyone is so enamored with him and considering him weak. The guy attempts to humiliate Ijin by trying to trip him, but Ijin immediately notices and prevents the attempt. This surprises the guy, who thought he had timed it perfectly. Ijin gives him a stern look, which further annoys him. Ijin recalls his conversation with Lieutenant Kong, who advised him to avoid fighting while in Korea. Ijin agrees not to engage in combat without sufficient information about the place, emphasizing that he won't rush into danger recklessly. He describes himself as a professional with a decade of battlefield experience, quite significant given his age. Kong reminds him that he's sharing this advice not just for Ijin's sake, but also for the well-being of his potential opponents. The teacher notices Ijin's momentary pause and asks why he stopped. Ijin apologizes and continues to his seat. The guy next to Ijin is instructed by the teacher to look out for him, and we learn that his name is Park Youngchan. Youngchan advises Ijin to be cautious around a student named Lee Jaehyung, who attempted to trip him, and his friend Ju Hyukjin, who is currently chatting with Lee. Ijin thanks Youngchan for the information. Then, the math teacher enters the classroom and starts the lesson. Ijin observes the people around him. Some are sleeping, some are laughing at something on their phones, and some are outside in gym clothes. He reflects on his days as a mercenary, briefly reminiscing about the intense training he endured. Today, he went through nothing, realizing that this country is peaceful while gazing into the sky. When school ends, we see Daeyeon walking towards the school gates. She spots Ijin, who is waiting for her, and this surprises her. Ijin asks if she'd like to walk home together, and she agrees. As they walk, a silence falls between them. Ijin mentions that this situation might feel a bit awkward, but Daeyeon responds that it's not really that awkward, just a little. Ijin adds that there's no need to be too flustered, explaining that he feels the same way. He was only 9 years old during the incident, meaning he has few memories of her or their grandfather. He points out that it might be even more challenging for her since she was only 7 at the time. This reveals that Ijin is now 19, and Daeyeon is 17. They continue walking in silence for a while, but one of the girls who used to bully Daeyeon spots her. Daeyeon becomes nervous, uncertain about what to do. The girl taunts Daeyeon, asking who the boy next to her is, mocking her by suggesting that he might be her boyfriend. Daeyeon quickly corrects the assumption, explaining that he's her brother. This surprises the girl. Ijin asks if the girl is a friend, and Daeyeon sheepishly confirms it. The girl becomes annoyed by this and questions Daeyeon if she is her friend. Daeyeon visibly trembles, and the girl persists, Ijin staring at their group. One of the boys in the group becomes angry at Ijin's intense gaze and stands up from his seat. Another asks if he's out of his mind. Ijin starts to think that they might be looking for a fight. He stands face to face with Ijin and suggests that he's only trying to act cool in front of his sister. Ijin takes note of all the boys' mistakes, thinking about how he's closing in the distance so easily, despite his exposed weak points and the lack of a weapon. He is puzzled by the boy's confidence but recalls the advice of Kong, who decides to leave the guy alone. The boy, frustrated by Ijin's indifference, grabs him by the shirt and prepares to slap him. That's when Daeyeon bows her head in apologies, explaining that Ijin lived abroad for a long time and wasn't accustomed to the local culture. The boy rebukes this, questioning what that has to do with him. Ijin looks at his horrified sister and suddenly jabs the boy's hand, dropping his backpack to the ground. He goes to Daeyeon and tells her to stand still for a moment, gently placing his blazer on her head. The boy attempts to attack Ijin from behind, but he swiftly knocks him out with one punch. The other two are surprised by Ijin's performance. Ijin feels annoyed that he had to break the promise he made to Lieutenant Kong on his very first day. The scene then cuts to a military zone, where some people are training. We see Kong observing them. A soldier approaches Kong, mentioning that today is the day Ijin goes to school. It appears that they have been educating him for the past 6 months and hope that he adjusts well. Kong confidently states that Ijin will be fine because he personally trained him. Returning to the fight scene, after Ijin knocks out the first boy, he quickly dashes to the other person and punches him squarely in the gut, sending him flying over a small balcony and rendering him unconscious as well. The girl is shocked by the outcome of the fight, and Ijin looks at her with a stern expression. Daeun takes the blazer off her head and wonders what happened to the guys who were picking a fight, seeing them knocked out cold. Ijin walks past the girl, heading toward Daeun, and asks if she is surprised, offering to buy her some food. Daeun reassures him that it's okay. Then Ijin suggested that they should go home. Curious about what comes next? Click on this video to continue. And don't forget to like and subscribe.